The following program has been rated S for spoilers, which may or may not be discussed by the hosts of said program. Common sense is suggested. You silly person.
Ma'am, I'm afraid we're going to have to ask you to leave the store.
Okay.
No, not you. You can stay.
Okay.
Well, forget about it. Anyway, this is the Flick List. For those of you who have watched us before, you probably know who you are, but just in case you don't, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm
Since
Erin.
you're going to stay.
I'm going to stay. My name's Erin.
And what do you do?
Um,
Other than being on this show?
I'm on this show, and I am one of the managers at the Marcus Cinema in La Crosse.
All right. And, my name is Drew. I work here at this TV studio. It's called WTCO in Trempealeau County, Wisconsin. And on my part-time job, I'm also in housewares.
Nice.
So, there we go. But not really. That's... If they know, they know. Right?
Right.
Right, okay. But just in case you don't, we'd like to thank everybody for who watched our Halloween show, by the way. We got a lot of views. We're actually hit the triple digits on the last episode, which I was very happy about. Can we do that again? I don't know. If in baseball, if a pitcher could throw a no-hitter like every game, they would, but I don't know if we're going to get 100 views in the next one. We'll see. But it'd be really nice.
A sequel of it?
Oh, I like that. Segue, Erin 1, Drew 0. But yeah, today we
That's
are...
my time?
Yeah. Today we are going to discuss sequels, but not just any sequels. We're quantifying this as favorite sequels.
Yeah, our
because,
favorite sequels.
You know, because I don't think... We don't get a ton of this, but... After every show, and then I've seen this on other shows, it's like, why didn't you bring up this movie, this movie, this movie, this movie? And like, well, because that's your list. You know, and there's a lot of like the big like lists of reputable websites that specialize in film and TV say the best blah 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 of all time, and they tend to have a lot of the same stuff on there. We might have some of the same stuff on there. You'll just have to watch and see. But that's why we call it favorite sequels and not best sequels. So it kind of leaves things open to interpretation, you could say. But
yes.
So hey, and if you have a favorite sequel, well, that's great too. But then you can get your own show. Or you can make requests. We do take requests.
We do.
We're not anti-requests. If there's some kind of show you'd like us or subject to discuss in this format, we'll certainly take it under consideration and then throw it right out the window.
Excuse me.
Or not. You know, we might actually take, if you're nice about it, we might actually think about doing that. But today it's about favorite sequels. And I guess as usual, Erin starts us off.
Excuse me.
Unless she's going to start coughing again.
Nope.
All right.
Good.
But anyway, it's time for Erin's number 5 favorite sequel.
And I do like that you preface this with favorite and not best, because that encapsulates.
Encapsulates?
Yes. I've been having problems with words today, which is a good thing. This is being recorded.
Yes.
So my number 5 favorite sequel is Batman Forever.
Yes.
Yes. The third one.
Yes. Because it doesn't have the 3 after it. But it is the third in the series. But is it truly forever? The title doesn't really, when you stop and think about it, the title doesn't really make any sense.
Not at all.
No.
And considering it was one of the few Batmans that only had one Batman. Batman.
Our water roadie just brought Erin a drink.
Thank you very much. I'm going to use it.
When we actually need, so, you know, we do keep water here at the studio, just in case, for this reason. So,
Batman Forever. With the single appearance of this Batman being Val Kilmer,
Yeah.
and also having my favorite Batman villain of all time, the Riddler.
Now, your favorite villain or your favorite Riddler actor?
My favorite villain.
Favorite villain overall.
Overall.
So this includes...
And whatever they did to the Riddler in this newest movie, he's not the Riddler.
Oh, you're speaking of the Glitter Boy Batman.
Of the Batman.
The
the Glitter Boy Batman.
Yeah. I don't care what his name is. I'm just going to call him Glitter Boy. Sorry. You know, I can't... that's a whole other...
It was okay, but I just didn't like what they did with the Riddler character in that movie. But that's not the movie we're talking about.
No.
We are talking about Batman Forever.
But would you say that all the other Riddlers that you've seen have been pretty good?
Yes.
Like, that would include... I think John Glover was the animated Riddler in the animated series.
Sounds right.
Yeah, and of course there's Frank Gorshin from Adam West.
Excellent Riddler.
And though I don't know of any other, off the top of my head, any other Riddlers. There's one in the Super Friends cartoon, but I don't know who does his voice. Probably Frank Welker or something.
Probably.
Because he does everything.
He does everybody. Everybody.
Oh, that sounds wrong.
But yeah, in this movie, he's played expertly by Jim Carrey.
Or is the Riddler playing Jim Carrey?
That is a good question.
Because this is when Jim Carrey was like
Jim Carrey.
red hot. I mean, and then then a couple years later he cooled, not nosedived, but he cooled off quite a bit. But he was like full Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber. That Jim Carrey is like up here.
Oh yeah.
At the time.
Peak Jim Carrey.
Peak Jim Carrey. Yes, that's the way to say it. Peak Jim Carrey. Yep. I remember going to see this when it came out. I just graduated high school. And I think I saw it in the theater like 3 times.
Wow.
I went with like one set of friends, and then me and this other friend from that set of friends had another friend who hadn't seen it. So we all went and we went back to it. And then I had another friend from that group, a different friend who knew another friend who had not seen it. So I went with that friend and this other friend who hadn't seen it and saw it again. If that makes sense.
That made sense.
Do you follow all that?
Weirdly, it made sense.
Yeah. So I ended up seeing it like 3 times. And I remember this, I believe, when it came out, was the reigning, or for the time being, the box office champ for opening weekend.
I think so, yeah.
At the time, it was a record. It seems to change every couple of years with a big movie. But when this was released, this was the winner of the time, of 1995. And I remember that it had a big marketing campaign, and McDonald's had these glasses.
The glasses, we had every single glass. And I think I still have a set.
And it had a great teaser poster with, it didn't say Batman on the poster. It was just a giant Riddler question mark. And it had the Batman logo in the middle of it. And it just said June 16th or whatever the date says right here. I'll put the poster up there. But yeah, it was pretty clever. And at the time, I thought it was pretty great. I'm not so sure. I still think it's a pretty okay movie. But I don't think I like it as much as when I first saw it.
Right.
If that makes sense.
You can tell watching it how much Tommy Lee Jones did not like working in this movie.
Well, I'm sure
weird.
I'm sure he probably didn't get along with certain people.
Oh, it's very well documented how much he didn't get along with Jim Carrey.
Yeah,
at all.
because I can just see them not.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Oil
like Jim Carrey's this big goofball,
which kind of works for the movie because then they don't. At first, they don't want to work together as criminals. But where do you rate Val Kilmer on the Batman food chain?
Well, I really enjoyed his Batman. I would say he is second only to Michael Keaton.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No love for Christian Bale?
I don't like the greedy Batman.
Okay.
I want my superhero movies to look like they're in a comic book.
Yeah.
I want the bright colors. I want the occasional jokes. I don't want the dark, dirty which is why I didn't like the new Batman movie.
Yeah. Oh, it's almost, it's like the Batman movies now, not that they're bad, quite opposite, they're pretty
They're
good.
good movies.
But it's almost like, how can we outdark the previous film? And that's why a movie like Forever, and even though it is campy, but it is funny. It's like, can I offer you a sandwich, sir? I'll get drive-through. And they use that in the McDonald's commercials for the glasses, and then there's another one where they're in at the end where they're at their little fortress, and he's like, oh, but it's dark out there. He says, oh, but you have your sonar bat suit, but you haven't tested it yet. And tonight's a good night. Just kind of these understated, just very blunt, dry kind of things. And, there's something else I was going to say about this movie, too. Oh, the music. Well, the theme is good. But, I mean, I'm talking about... This is one of the bad things I have to say about this movie, is that it spawned a single by the singer named Seal, who these days is probably most famous for being married to Heidi Klum, the model.
Yep.
I don't know if he's had a hit in a while. This is probably his last. We had this ballad he wrote for this movie called "Kiss from a Rose." And I was seeing this girl at the time, and I bought that single, and we listened to it all the time. And she treated me like, and I kind of can't listen to that song anymore. But even though it is kind of a good song.
That's one of my favorite songs.
But then, anyway,
actually, that album is good. It's
weird.
It has one of the weird good U2 songs.
Yeah, it has that weird, it has this weird electronic-y thing in it.
It's a good album.
It just kind of gets
I'm sorry that you can't appreciate the music anymore.
Well, that song I can't. The score is good. Elliot Goldenthal, I think, if I'm saying his Goldenthal, I forget his last name, wrote the score, but it's pretty good. And then, then Batman and Robin happened, and
yeah, we don't talk about Batman and Robin.
I suppose it's my turn, huh? All right. My number 5 sequel, since we talked about horror movies on one of our other episodes, I would say this is the only horror movie in my list, and I'll preface this by saying, as far as favorite sequels go, I probably could have picked 5 completely different movies, because there's a lot of good sequels, but these are just 5 I just picked off the top of my head. I'm going to go with George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. And the one reason that the Walking Dead TV show exists now, other than the fact it was a comic book, is probably because of this movie. Because there isn't a ton of continuity between the Dead or Living Dead films that he made, because the characters are all different in each movie. The only recurring thing is that the zombies are going on.
Yeah. Zombies are a thing that are happening.
They're just kind of happening, and then the people are in the situation regarding the zombies is always different. And in this case, in the first film, of course, very famously, a young man and woman find an abandoned house, and then they have to keep the zombies out, and then they find out there's other people in there who are of different backgrounds and social status and all these other things. What are we going to do? I don't know. Do we have food? And all those other kind of things. Well, he kind of kicks that up a notch, and these people who work for this, a couple of them anyway, work for a TV station, and a couple others are cops, and they manage to sneak out from this helicopter and find an abandoned shopping mall. Well, it's an abandoned of normal people.
Yes.
There are zombies in the mall, and they figure, well, if we can just get the zombies out of the mall, this would be a pretty good defensible place to stay, and it has food and clothes,
got stuff in it,
and there's things. And
everything you ever need in the mall.
So, and then it kind of lends itself to a lot of like dark humor also, but also comments on consumerism. And here's one scene where, spoilers just in case you haven't seen the movie, it's only like 40 some years old, where, and it's weird to look at it now because malls are kind of not quite as in vogue as they used to be.
True.
But this is when malls were the place. This was like the cool place to go if you were like a kid.
Yes.
It was the mall. And there's one of those. They used to have them. I don't know if they still do. This probably went the way of like the $1 photo booths. Did you ever see those?
The photo kiosk.
Yeah, where you
shove
sit
all
in
your
and it like
friends in.
snaps pictures of you. They had a thing. They also had things in the mall that would like take your blood pressure.
Oh yeah.
Well, there's a scene, this movie where the people who get to the shopping mall later on in the movie find out they're not the only people looking for a shopping mall to hang out, because then a biker gang shows up.
Oh yeah.
The leader of which is played by the makeup artist of this movie named Tom Savini. And one of the bikers decides he'd be funny to like, they're like, you know, they have guns and whips and all this stuff, and they're like driving by like a jousting match trying to get rid of this. And one of them, for fun, just decides to stop at this blood pressure checking thing. And when he's not paying attention, a zombie comes by, or a couple, or I forget how many. And they like, and pulls him, and his arm is still stuck in the thing.
Yep.
And then it looks up, and it's on the machine. It says, "Your blood pressure is 0." So that's, you know, there's moments like that in the movie that are kind of fun. And then but it's also a very bleak movie, which is, you know, that's kind of how the movies that he makes. So, Dawn of the Living Dead. I don't know if there's a whole lot more I can add to that. I don't know, do you have any notes on Dawn of the Dead? Thoughts, comments, suggestions?
I don't like zombie movies, so I don't watch a lot of them.
No?
But I have seen this one, and I do know that they basically took the plot of it wholesale and made it into several video games.
Oh, sure.
Which is just a guy at a mall, and you kill zombies.
Yeah.
And those games are ridiculous fun, even though I do not like playing games with zombies in them for reasons. But
fair enough.
Weirdly, those games are fun. And that's all I really have to say about zombies.
Okay.
I don't like zombies. It's too real.
Yeah, or as like Ken Foray says in the movie, "Wake up, sucker!" But anyway, it's time for Erin's number 4 favorite sequel.
My number 4 favorite sequel is Shrek 2.
Now, speaking of soundtracks, like the first film, does this? I don't remember this. It's been a while since I've seen it. But does the second film also have that song in it by the Smash Mouth, the Monkees cover? The "I'm a Believer" song, or is that just in the first film?
I think it does make an appearance again, because they end up having like Happily Ever After Idol.
Oh yeah, that's
at
right.
the end. So I think it does make a little bit of a comeback at some point in time. But yes, the soundtrack to this movie is just as good as the soundtrack, if not better, than the soundtrack in the first movie. And these movies have some excellent soundtracks where they just pull popular songs and place them in. And
any
great.
like medieval fairy tale where they can work in Joan Jett into a soundtrack?
Yeah. Definitely. This
Reputation.
movie is the main reason that most people my age and younger know the song Hallelujah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I know the original artist, but it's escaping me at the moment. I can see his face.
Yep.
Leonard Cohen.
Yep.
Leonard Cohen. Yeah. Everybody sings like this.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Great.
Hallelujah. Yep. Copyright strike.
Copyright. But like this, you have Funky Town, you have all different other things going on. But this movie basically, a direct sequel from the original Shrek, which was already just spoofing all the fairy tales, making fun of Disneyland, and just outright going and putting all the fairy tales on its head. So in your normal fairy tale, you have the beautiful princess saved by a prince, and all that. And what happened in the first one was they became ogres because that was the form she really wanted. She preferred to be in, to be with Shrek. Spoilers for Shrek. In this one, they have to go back to her family, and her family are humans.
Now this is John Cleese and Julie Andrews.
Yes,
right?
John Cleese and Julie Andrews. And in order to do so, Shrek kind of gets the fairy godparent to make him human because for some reason he gets in his head that Fiona would rather have a normal life, but he doesn't understand that she's perfectly happy as an ogre. But then you get Hot Shrek and Hot Donkey. It's just a horse.
Donkey.
But it's all and yeah, it's fun. It's good.
And
time.
it's a great movie because there's everything. There's things in it for both kids and adults, and the adult jokes are probably going to be lost on the kids, but that's okay because they'll get them when they watch the movie again when they're older.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. So, although the first one did the same thing as well with like the, there's all kinds of adult
just
humor
all
in
sorts
there.
of jokes.
And it's on so many levels. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, and I guess it's back to me for my number 4 sequel. I'm going with a superhero sequel here, but it's not of any. You're probably expecting me to pick like Endgame or Spider-Man Homecoming. Well, actually, no. What was the second one called?
No Way Home.
No Way Home. Yeah. Or no.
No, that was his last one.
Something Home.
Far From Home.
Far From Home. Yeah. Well, I'm going way back to 1981 when there wasn't a superhero movie every 5 months or 3 months or however often they come out.
Every other week.
Yeah. Well, this was like when you got one like maybe every 2 or 3 years kind of thing. I'm going with Superman 2 with Christopher Reeve, who is my favorite Superman of all time. Might even be my favorite on-screen portrayal of a superhero ever. I mean, the casting is just perfect. I think maybe Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man would be the second best casting for a superhero.
Yes.
But
He's
yeah,
top of my list.
yeah, and I think Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is also good. Well, I guess he's coming back now in Deadpool 3, supposedly, when he was supposedly done with the character. But yeah, I think
Gotta leave it to Ryan Reynolds. He can.
Yeah, he
get
can sweet talk
into a
anybody.
movie. Especially Hugh Jackman.
So yeah, Christopher Reeve is at the top of my list. But yeah, I saw this when I was 4 years old, I think, at the theater, and yeah, it's and I could watch it. I don't think it's aged the best in terms of like some of the humor or even some. Well, the effects are okay. I mean, they were good for what they did at the time. I mean, they wouldn't do that now, of course, but. But the thing is that back in 2006, they released this thing called Superman 2: The Donner Cut, because when they were making Superman 1, they were going to shoot Superman 1 and 2 at the same time. Well, they finished Superman 1, but they only got about half of 2 done, and they had all this stuff done, and then they fired Richard Donner he was going to do Superman 2, and they brought in a different director. And a lot of things that he shot ended up not being in the film. And if you have seen Superman 2: The Donner Cut, you'll kind of see the differences in the tone of the film.
Right.
The guy they got to replace him was named Richard Lester, who was famous. He was more of he didn't really, I guess he was, what's the word? Not capable, but pedestrian, I guess. I don't know. Functional director, I guess would be the right word.
Yeah.
But he was more known for comedy. He directed the Beatles and A Hard Day's Night. He did a Three Musketeers movie for the same producers of the film, so that's why he kind of got called in to direct this film,
Right.
or finish the film, and get credit for it. And then a lot of the humor is kind of, in some spots, doesn't really work. And in the Donner cut, a lot of that stuff is gone. The tone is much more different. And you see Marlon Brando come back. Because in Superman 2, when it was released theatrically, they couldn't use him. Otherwise, they would have had to pay him a crazy amount of money.
Right.
But all these years later, he had passed away, of course, and it's like most of that was a coup so they could use his likeness and image for the Superman Returns movie that Bryan Singer made. So it's like, well, if we're going to do that, we can do Superman 2 now. Or the Donner cut. So they put all that stuff back in there, and it works pretty well. And amongst some other things. And just in case you don't know the plot, at the beginning of the first film, before you're even introduced to who Superman is, there's these 3 criminals from Superman's home planet that get locked up in this thing called the Phantom Zone, and then you don't see them again for the rest of the movie.
Right.
Well, at the early part of Superman 2, Superman inadvertently throws a rocket or a bomb exploding elevator, depending on which version you watch, into space, which explodes and accidentally releases the criminals. And they make their way to Earth and cause all kinds of chaos.
Because Earth is the place to be.
Yes, of course it is. Or Houston, as General Zod calls it. They come from there, a place called Houston. But because the astronauts said, Houston, we have a problem, they think the planet's called Houston. So, I just really like this movie, and it's sweet, and I don't know, I just do. Even though it's not perfect, it's just kind of one of my favorites. Sequels.
Yes.
All right. So, anything else for you?
Superman 2? It's a good one.
Yeah. Have you seen the Donner cut?
I don't think I have.
Yeah, give it a watch. I'm pretty sure it's on HBO Max.
Okay.
I think.
Maybe.
Okay, it's time for Erin's number 4 sequel. 3 sequel, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm losing track.
Yep. My number 3 sequel, which happens to be a 3rd sequel, is Army of Darkness. The 3rd movie.
If they know, they know.
In the Evil Dead series.
Lady, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's weird because, when I first saw this movie, I didn't know that this was part of a series.
Same.
Someone had, because the Evil Dead is not in, and maybe I don't know this much about the movie, but was Evil Dead 3 even considered as a title for this film?
I don't think so.
Because to me, it was just a
Anything at
one-off,
all.
but then in the beginning of the movie, they're talking about how he got sucked through this thing
Yep.
with the car, and then he had his girlfriend, and
Yep.
it came and got her, and it got in my hand, and all this prologue. He's
Yeah.
narrating all this stuff. I'm like, well, was there a movie before this? And then,
It's like, not only was there a movie before this,
but there was
There were
2. And I'm
there was
like,
a movie and a half. It's
Yeah.
a long story.
And then, I didn't get around to seeing those later, but even if it's just you're just watching this as a one-off film, it's still pretty fun. I mean, you don't necessarily need to have seen the others to.
No, they give a pretty good prologue in order to get you all caught up in that.
Right.
Yeah. When I first watched this, I didn't realize it was part of a series. But this was one that I saw probably too young the first time I saw it. It was just one of those, Dad's gonna watch a movie, kids happen to be there, so we watched the movie with Dad, and this was the movie he chose to watch.
Wow.
And it's just really good.
Yeah.
Sam Raimi, just excellent filmmaker and all that. And Bruce Campbell is one of my favorite actors of all time. And this role is just him, basically, to a T. And he is quite possibly the best left-handed hero in the world.
Hey,
Actually.
what's that you got on your face? What? Foomp.
Who else can wield a boomstick and a chainsaw and fight loads and loads of deadites who are not zombies?
Yeah. Or who fight a skeleton and say, "I got a bone to pick with you."
And this one has good Ash and evil Ash in it, and also evil.
Goody little two shoes.
Good Ash. Good little Juice. There's a lot that happens in this movie. There's a lot of references to other movies in this movie that you may not know unless you know a lot of movies. And it just shows exactly...
The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Exactly.
Klaatu Barada Nikto.
Nikto.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nectar.
Nectar. Whatever.
Yeah. And another thing, too, is that this is not... is a little different than Superman 2, but this movie had filmed two different endings. There's the theatrical ending.
Yep.
With, lady, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store. And there's another ending where he actually, rather than just jumping back to his own time, he had to sleep. And they gave him like this, what was it, like just a potion?
Yeah.
Elixir of some sort?
Yeah.
And then he loses concentration for a second and he takes an extra drop. So when he wakes up, he doesn't wake up in his own time. He wakes up in, I don't like the year, in the future. And then he's like, I slept too long.
It's a very downer ending.
Yeah,
I can see
but it's
why
still
they
kinda fun.
changed it. But yeah.
But then you would have had to, I mean, like, that would have had to have been addressed in like an Evil Dead 4. See, now if they had stuck with that ending, like, how different would like the series Ash versus Evil Dead have been?
True.
You'd wake up in that screwed up time period, and would it be like Back to the Future 2, where you'd have to go back to the past again to fix something, or I don't know.
Or just how would he get back to where he needed to be, and it'd be entirely different. Yes.
All right, cool. Is it my turn?
Yes.
All right. My number 3 favorite sequel doesn't even have a 2 in the title, but this might be the first example that I know of where this happened, where they just pluralized the title. It is called Aliens from 1986.
Yes.
And when I first heard they were going to make a sequel to Alien, I've seen many times where people tried to make sequels to like just why did you make a sequel to that? The first movie is amazing, and why would you do that? But of course, money is a big factor. I mean, look at like Jaws 2, Jaws 3, Jaws 4.
Gosh.
Actually, Jaws 2 isn't that bad, but 3 and 4 are pretty terrible.
I did not even think about the Jaws movies.
Yeah. Because, like, if you just never made another Jaws... Well, you know what? To be fair, the rest of Hollywood tried to make a Jaws movie. So Jaws was responsible for all of these other...
That's true.
You know? Who knows? Maybe we'll do another episode on the rip-offs of Jaws.
Oof. I don't know if I can handle that.
I think it'd be fun, but... Anyway, Aliens, they announced the sequel, and they made a silly move, the studio did, by announcing that the sequel was going forward, but yet no one told Sigourney Weaver about it. It's like, back that truck back up to my door, and you can release the money on my doorstep anytime you want. But the sequel takes place exactly 57 years after the first one, because in the end of the first film, she's much like Ash in Army of Darkness. She's put into a cryo sleep tube thing, and for some reason she just doesn't get picked up for 50 years, or nobody finds her ship. She's just floating out there, and it's like, oh, how long was I out? 57 years, kind of thing. And they find out that
anybody else make it? No.
Nope, no one else made it, and she's kind of been. Maybe demonized isn't the right word, but they don't believe her about like this creature. Like, what are you talking about? Nobody's ever heard of this thing. Yeah. You blew up a very expensive ship of ours, and they had to have this little case trial thing. And then she has to get a normal day job. And then, finally, then she figures out that the planet that she found the aliens on, guess what? People moved out there and are living there now. So,
not a good plan.
Like, whoa, no one's had problems out there before, but all of a sudden, boom, they lost contact with everybody. So, now they're like, oh, will you please come with us and show us what's going on with this planet, and we're going to send you in with the Marines and all this other stuff. That's where the movie gets great because you get like
Space
these the Marines, the people they cast in this movie, the Marines are just fantastic.
Absolutely
an early
fantastic.
Bill Paxton is in this movie. May he rest in peace. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. Michael Biehn is in it. This is post-Terminator Michael Biehn. He's been in a lot of other things like Tombstone and what's that other movie I was in? Oh, Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen. He was in that. And I can't remember the names of the other actors, but just watch the movie.
Yeah.
It's just great. And it's up, and they find like most of the people are gone because they've been killed or cocooned or whatever. But they find this little girl who somehow survived. And she kind of doesn't want to talk because she's scared of them. And then she eventually comes around and she establishes this friendship with Ripley. And then she gets kidnapped towards the end of the movie and she has to find her and all this other stuff. And great action, great characters, good plot that makes sense. Not like that, where'd that come from? Because that happens a lot in action movies where they focus a little too much on the action, but the stories and the characters just don't work or make sense. So yeah, good stuff.
Oh yeah, Aliens is one that I know that I like, but I also
is this where you're going to talk about Alien 3?
No, I somehow merge the first two movies into one movie whenever I think about it. It's just like, it's
because
weird.
They are different
They
films.
are very different movies. But for some reason, I think of Alien, like I think of the first Alien, and I think of everybody from the second Alien movies being in the first Alien, but it's not. So I just, for some reason, think Aliens is the first Alien when it's not. I
think we need to discuss the bonus situation. Because I think we deserve our full shares. You know, we need money. You know, just,
I don't know what's wrong.
Yeah, I forget Harry Dean Stanton's line. So Mr. Park and I don't feel like we've been included in this, whole thing. But that's game over, man.
Game over, man.
All right, we're on to Erin's number 2 sequel.
My number 2 sequel is Gremlins 2, A New Batch.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. When we were picking topics and sequels came up, this is the first movie that I thought of for sequels is Gremlins 2.
But it's not your number 1.
But it's not my number 1. It was almost my number 1, but then I remembered another movie existed that became my number 1, which we will talk about when we get there. But Gremlins 2 is one of those weird situations of a sequel happening that's unnecessary. Well, most sequels are unnecessary, honestly.
Yeah.
But it changing the whole entire format of the movie. So like the first Gremlins is A horror movie and B a Christmas movie all at the same time. This one, I don't think it's a horror movie. It's like more comedy than horror, and it's not a Christmas movie at all.
And it takes a risk. Because that's the thing with sequels. It's like if you don't do anything too creative, you end up making the same movie, which is kind of what people want. But then,
or what people expect.
Yeah, anyways. Or you take it in a completely different direction, and it pays off wonderfully, or it falls flat on its face. And at the time, I don't think people. And I'll admit, I didn't really, when I saw Gremlins 2 when I was younger, I didn't really like it that much. But this is, I think, a rare case of a sequel where a lot of sequels, if people like them when they come out, more often than not, they stay pretty good. Or sometimes, like in the case of Superman 2, it goes down a little bit. It's still okay, but it doesn't age quite as well. Or whereas this one, I think, it wasn't really liked when it came out, but it has appreciated quite a bit in the intervening years, and it's a lot of the in jokes and humor were lost on me in this because it's not necessarily for kids. It's definitely more of an adult, like the Shrek thing, where a lot of humor is aimed at adults, or even like Dawn of the Dead, like the stuff about shopping and all these other things. But like the TV networks and like the big media built. Well, first of all, maybe we should talk about the plot a little bit.
The plot of it, instead of taking place in a town, is the entire movie takes place in this building, which is
He
a
goes.
TV
He
network.
goes from the little town to New York City.
New York City.
Yep.
And he's in this big broadcast building where like each floor is a different channel of a multi-channel network building. It's pretty cool.
Oh
And
yeah, I gotta say I love like a microwaving with Marge or whatever it's called. It's like, could you have a more lame cooking show than microwaving with Marge?
the thing is that shows like that exist.
Yeah, they do.
Like everything is
Remind
just
me
like
to show you some
slightly-
footage of Chef Gierke visiting like TV morning shows.
Oh gosh. Oh, but like everything was just like they would be shows that you would see like in early cable network shows where they're just trying to fill whatever niche corner of the
And
market they have.
this was before streaming too, by
Yeah.
the way. This was all like when cable was still king and there was like more than 100 channels. And it seemed like there was a channel for everything. Oh yeah, and the archary channel they have too. All these stupid channels that they came
so
up
many
with. Yeah.
stupid channels. They're all really funny. And then the tower gets overrun by gremlins.
Because gremlins.
Because gremlins. Yep. They will find a way. They will find a way in there.
There's a couple of interesting things because I think about this movie because Joe Dante is the director. And because a couple people get involved in this movie because they snubbed Joe Dante earlier, sort of.
Yeah.
The sort of one would be Christopher Lee, who is in this movie. He plays, I love this, he plays Dr. Catheter. And
He's a mad scientist.
supposedly,
It's a
I
perfect
mean, and Joe Dante directed a werewolf movie called The Howling. And Christopher Lee was not in The Howling, but he was in Howling 2, which was not good. It's goofy fun for a sequel, but it's not good. Anyway, supposedly, when he got hired for this job, he apologized profusely to Joe Dante for being in Howling 2 because it was horrible. Because apparently Christopher Lee really liked The Howling as a movie. He's like, I'm so sorry it was Howling 2. And the other one was the makeup, or the creatures in this movie were done by Rick Baker, famous makeup man. And Rick Baker was originally supposed to do the werewolves for The Howling. And he started doing work on that. And then he basically jumped ship to go work on American Werewolf in London for John Landis because that's like his best friend and all this other stuff. So, but I'll give it to like my best, Rob Bottin, who's become quite a makeup man in his own right, took over the werewolves and they look pretty good.
Yeah.
So he ended up doing all the creature effects for like The Thing and all kinds of movies. So yeah, that was kind of interesting on how he kind of made good with Joe Dante about a decade later. So yeah, and John Glover is in this. Speaking of the Riddler, and Lionel Luthor. He was Lionel Luthor on Smallville also.
Yes.
But yeah, playing a very how would you say it? Potential future president.
Megalomaniacal.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Let's put it.
He's playing a Luthor-esque villain.
What did he? Yeah. Well, what is this like? Stump or something, or what are they? There's some kind of like
Clamp.
clamp.
It's Clamp. It's Clamp Networks.
Yeah.
Because
there's like
the logo is a
there's
big old sea of the world
Clamp
and it's
building
smooshed.
with all these channels in it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the main jux of this batch of gremlins and why it's the new batch is that they all get imbued with some sort of weird DNA. So they're all different. So we have the really smart gremlin, who is Tony Randall.
Yes.
And he talks. Now you have a gremlin that talks. You have a female gremlin. You have a spider gremlin.
And like a gargoyle.
There's a well, he's a bat.
Or a bat.
He's a bat, and he also gets imbued with UV light so that he can go outside because they can't go outside. It's one of the rules.
Yeah.
You can't have them in the sunlight. That's how they die. But he gets the UV light in him and can go outside.
Thanks, Dr. Catheter.
Yeah, exactly. So the neighbor, I don't remember his relationship to everybody else in the first movie, sees this flying gremlin covers him in cement, where he then kind of flies off very slowly and then peeks on a building and becomes a gargoyle. It's an epic scene.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sweet. Yeah. And that's like one of the MOs for like, okay, if we're gonna do another movie, we don't want the Gremlins to look like the Gremlins from the first movie. If we're gonna have like a geneticist in the movie, there should be all kinds of crazy looking Gremlins.
Oh yeah. They got crazy looking Gremlins.
All right.
All sorts of kinds.
Yeah. All kinds.
This one also spawned a video game that was like 16-bit, and I remember playing this so much on our home computer, and the soundtrack to it is the Night on Bald Mountain. No, in the Hall of the Mountain King, the da 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 da.
Sure.
That in a 8-bit soundtrack on the loop the entire game.
Nice.
And just that. It got stuck in my head a lot as a kid. It was a weird game. It was a very weird game.
Computer games back then were weird. This is 2. Yeah, it's my 2. Yeah.
Yes.
My number 2 selection probably, this isn't going to be a real huge shock because it's a huge sequel, but it's The Empire Strikes Back. It's pretty hard for me not to have this on the list. I saw this in the theater multiple times over, but I don't think I saw it on its initial release in 1980. I don't think I saw it till like 82, because back then, before home video, if a movie was really big, it was very common to get a re-release. And Star Wars was no exception. I think Star Wars was re-released like every year until, I don't know, the mid 80s probably.
Oh, yeah.
But they were very limited. Like in 1981, you could only see Star Wars in August for like 2 weeks, and then you couldn't see it again for another year, kind of thing. So they kind of drum up the demand to go see it. It's like, well, you'll have Star Wars, and your kid never saw it. Here's your chance, but you only got 2 weeks to see it. That's kind of the same way it was with The Empire Strikes Back until like Return of the Jedi came out. Like I think it was originally released in 1980. It came out in 81 for a limited release, and I did a limited release in 82, which is I think when I saw it. And then of course Return of the Jedi came out, but keep kind of the interest going in all the sequels. But of course they wouldn't do that now because it'll be, well, if they did it now, it would probably be like in 3D or something like that.
Please don't make these. Don't make these movies in 3D. Don't do it.
Hey, the Avatar's coming. You know that's going to be in 3D.
Yes, I know that's. I work at a movie theater. I know it's going to be in 3D.
Yep. That's not stopping anytime soon, but anyway, I don't know if I really have to go.
Stupid gimmick.
Do I really need to go over the plot of Empire Strikes Back?
It's the downer one. Hey.
Well, yeah, kind of.
It ends on a downer.
But it's also probably the most enlightening of the sequels, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Except for me. Well, yeah, probably.
Yes.
And then I can verify, if you do watch this movie, you'll see why there's a line in this movie that's probably the most misquoted. Because people like to, for some reason, I don't know, whenever someone, like either I know personally or like people in my family, when the subject of Star Wars comes up, somebody will inadvertently blurt out, "Luke, I am your father," and I have to
no,
that's not it. Like, what do you mean? That's not the line. What do you mean? That's not his father? Yes, it is, but that's not the line from the movie. It's called, the line is, "No, I am your father," is the line. So, I don't know. I don't know. That's always bugged me. I don't know why.
It's because it's just easier to say, like, you get the whole point across when you are speaking into the fan to get the Darth Vader voice. "Luke, I am your father." It just gets the whole point across. But yes, that is the wrong line.
It's kind of like in the entire series of Star Trek, there's not one time where Captain Kirk says, "Beam me up, Scotty." But yet that became the phrase. I think he didn't say it until like Star Trek 4.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Just because everybody by then was saying
that.
He
It's just like,
finally
well, now
they
we
just
have to.
made the line in the movie. But he's always said like,
and the crowd erupts.
Like,
he said the thing.
Yeah, Scotty, activate transporters, and Scotty, now, beam now. But he never said, "Beam me up, Scotty." And this movie is kind of the same deal. But a lot of layers to the onion in this movie for sure, about learning things and discovering who you are, and learning from your mistakes is probably the biggest one, I would say.
And losing hands.
Yes. And that was another pointed debate when my, well, not with my family or anything, but when I was a kid, we couldn't remember. On the way home, we had an argument of whether his hand or arm got cut off, because we in the movie, because we didn't, this wasn't like we didn't have this on tape or streaming or anything to go back. Oh, let's go back and watch. We had to wait till it came out on video to find out, because if it got cut off at the elbow or it got cut off just his hand.
Like mid.
Yeah.
Like right here.
Yeah, people in the Skywalker family have a bad habit of losing their
Limbs.
Just
limbs in general.
except for maybe, well, Rey, I guess, isn't a Skywalker technically.
Skywalker.
Although she claims to be one at the end of.
Well, now that she is a Skywalker, maybe she will
That hand is coming off.
lose some limbs.
Yeah. It's like her. The Force ghosts are looking over at the end and like, oh, isn't that nice? She's burying our lightsabers, and she's going to lose her hand.
And there it goes.
And there it goes. And I love the Walker fight in this movie. There's a really good Star Wars video game where you can play and shoot at the Walkers. So, yeah, lots of fun.
Yay.
All right, your number one sequel.
My number one sequel is Ghostbusters 2. Yay. The one. Yeah, okay, fine. I know it's not a good movie, but I love this movie. So I quote this movie more than I quote any other movie. It's ridiculous.
Do you quote it more than the original Ghostbusters?
I would say yeah.
Really?
I do. You have no idea how much I can just put into a random conversation. He is Vigo. I like the buzzing of flies to him.
I was just going to say, when I think of this movie, I think of Vigo. And like pink ooze.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the whole movie. It's Vigo and pink ooze. Mood slime. There's pink slime in a bathtub trying to eat a baby.
I'm going through like the Rolodex in my head of like quotes from this film, and all the cards are coming up blank. Whereas like I think of the first film, I think of I collect spores, molds, and fungus. Those kind of lines. But this one, I don't know. Well, I shouldn't say that. Vigo comes up. Yep. There's a card that says Vigo.
Yeah. You have the ghosts in the tunnel that go, Winston.
And then who is the Vigo caretaker guy? What's his name? Yeah, Peter McNichol is the name of the actor. And the only reason I know him, well, I'm ashamedly to admit this, but he was famous for a show called Ally McBeal. Even though he's been an actor for a long time. But I first saw him in a movie when I was a kid, about the same time as Superman 2 came out, called Dragon Slayer, where he plays the dude who slays the dragon. Spoiler alert!
Fun.
Yeah.
In a movie called Dragon Slayer, someone slays a dragon?
Yeah.
Do tell.
Well, and it was the first movie where ILM did the visual effects for that was not a Star Wars film. Random bit of useless trivia. I'm still waiting for a Blu-ray on that one. And a 4K.
For Dragon Slayer?
Yeah, it has not been released on Blu-ray. It is. The funny thing is, it's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
And it looks really good, but it's not. I think
it's not Blu-ray quality yet.
Oh, it's on. It's quality. It looks good. Okay. It just hasn't been released. But
get it out there, man.
I think the last release it had was DVD. But I mean, it's. I think it's coming.
Okay. Are they waiting for like the 40th anniversary or something like that?
Oh, it's coming on. 81, so it would have been last year. Yeah.
They missed out.
They did release.
45.
They did release the soundtrack.
Soundtrack. Okay.
I have it. It's at home. It was a special release of like everything.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice. Alex North is the composer. Guy's been around for like 50 some years. He did the he goes back to the day the Earth stood still.
Oh, wow.
So you've been
Wow.
around for a long time. But
Ah.
it's very good score. But anyway, Ghostbusters 2.
Ghostbusters 2.
If you got anything left.
No, not really. I just love this
I want to
movie.
say that
It's
much like Batman Forever, this had like a merchandise campaign. Like Hardee's had some kind of Ghostbusters 2. I don't think they were.
Possible.
I don't think they were glasses,
this
but
is
they.
a little bit more before I remember
Yeah.
things being merchandisable.
Because this was the same summer that Michael Keaton's first Batman film
Uh-huh.
came out. And every movie that came out had some kind of merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
And Ghostbusters 2 had some. I'd have to look this up. It wasn't glasses, but it was like some kind of gadget or like. I don't remember. Like their little.
They have
kids'
they,
meals or
I don't
something.
feel like they would have had the ooze gun
Yeah.
they used to spray down the inside of the Statue of Liberty.
I do remember that when this
I
used
can't
to be
listen to that song without thinking of this movie, The Higher and Higher.
Oh, and there's used to be a thing when I was in grade school where you'd pack your lunch, and people like to give you or pack juice boxes. And there's this company, I don't even know if they still make this anymore, called High C.
I see.
And High C
High C
made this
still
thing
exists?
called
The
Ecto
Ecto
Cooler. And I
That
had,
stuff is delicious.
oh my God, I did not like that. It's basically grapefruit juice.
Yeah.
And it's just disgusting. It's like, why don't you taste better, Ecto Cooler? Oh yeah, that's right. It's supposed to
Perfectly
taste
fine.
like slime.
It was green.
Yeah, it was just. bleh. But anyway.
It was good. Pay no attention to him. They brought it back. They brought it back
Oh,
recently.
I know they
and
brought it back.
Yeah. They
Oh,
brought
well,
it back and it
we're-
went away again.
We're running out of time. We got to keep going.
Okay, yours. Sorry.
My number one is probably no surprise to anyone who watched. What was that episode we did with that? We talked about this. Wasn't sequels. What was it?
No.
I can't remember now.
I don't remember.
Well, anyway, it's Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
I saw this when I was a kid, and when I saw it, I knew nothing about Star Trek. I did not know it was a television show. I kind of knew it was a thing because I knew there was a guy with pointed ears in it called Spock, just through the osmosis of pop culture. And my mom said, I think it's like Star Wars. I think you would like it. And she was right. I loved it. And it's got a lot of stuff in it. I mean, I don't know if I really have to rehash the plot too much. There's a controversial death in the movie. But
There's Khan.
yeah, and there's Khan, of course. And there's action in it. There's all kinds of lessons learned about friendship, about being an adult. How am I aging? What am I going to be like? Man, I'm 50. I have to wear glasses now. Little stuff like that. There's body horror in the movie. I won't spoil that for anybody in case you haven't seen it. Hold on a second. Got something in my ear here. Oh, there it's gone. But yeah, there's a lot of, like I said before, there's a lot of layers to the onion that is Star Trek 2. And like an onion, it might make you cry. So, a very good film. So, and I can see we're out of time, and that's my number one. So, there you go.
Yay.
You said you had a quick honorable mention?
I had a quick honorable mention because I'm dumb and don't remember movies sometimes, and that is Grease 2,
Oh, of course.
which I do know that we talked
With
about
Rex
earlier.
Manning.
Yes, with Rex Manning.
It's Rex Manning Day.
Rex Manning Day.
All right, we gotta go.
Yep.
I
Thanks for joining us.
we're blah blah blahing about sequels. Until the next one, I'm Drew.
I'm Erin.
I don't work in housewares, but I'll see you later.
Bye.